I never thought I'd be caught up in something so insane. This is my story about how I stumbled into the world of drugs, betrayal, and a dirty DEA agent. My name is Alex, and this all happened a couple of months ago in Miami. It was just an ordinary Thursday morning. I was on my way to work, the sun shining down on the busy streets, palm trees swaying. I parked my car and walked to my office, a small marketing firm in downtown Miami. Everything felt normal, but little did I know, my life was about to take a turn I couldn't have imagined. At lunchtime, I decided to grab a bite at a taco stand I loved. As I stood in line, I overheard two guys talking nearby. They were speaking in hushed tones, but I caught snippets about the deal and the drop. I didn't think much of it at the time. Miami was full of shady conversations. But something about the way they looked around made me curious. I finished my tacos and headed back to the office. The rest of the day went by slowly. My mind kept wandering back to the guys at the taco stand. I wanted to know what they were involved in. It felt like something was brewing, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was on the edge of something huge. That evening, I decided to take a walk along the beach to clear my head. As I strolled, I spotted the same two guys from earlier sitting on a bench. They seemed tense, constantly glancing at their phones. I couldn't help myself. I inched closer, pretending to check out the view while trying to eavesdrop. Suddenly, a third guy joined them, and I recognized him as a local dealer I had seen around. They talked about moving a big shipment and how they needed to be careful because the feds were watching. My heart raced. I realized I was in the middle of something dangerous. I headed home, my mind racing with what I had just witnessed. The next day, I woke up to find my news feed filled with reports of a major drug bust. A DEA agent was implicated, and the details were shocking. The agent was supposedly in cahoots with a well-known drug lord. I couldn't believe it. The same guys I had overheard were probably involved. Days passed, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I'd glance over my shoulder whenever I was out. I wasn't even sure why I felt that way, but something about that afternoon lingered in my mind. One night, I was at a bar with friends when I saw one of the guys from the taco stand. He was with a woman who looked nervous, glancing around constantly. I decided to approach them, feeling bold from a couple of drinks. "Hey, you guys look like you're up to something," I joked. The guy shot me a look that made me regret my words instantly. "Just enjoying the night," he replied coolly. But I could see the tension in his jaw. I didn't want to push my luck, so I backed off and returned to my friends. A few days later, I was sitting in my living room when I heard a loud commotion outside. I rushed to my window and saw police cars swarming the street. Officers were shouting, and it looked chaotic. My heart raced again. I decided to step outside. As I walked down my street, I spotted an officer leading away a man in handcuffs. My stomach dropped. It was the third guy, the local dealer. I overheard officers saying they had a lead about the DEA agent who had gone rogue. I knew then that things were getting serious. I couldn't sleep that night, and the next morning I woke up to even bigger news. The DEA agent had been identified, and he was involved in a scheme that had cost the government millions. They were still searching for him. I was on the edge of my seat, and all I could think about was the conversation I had overheard. What if that agent was in Miami? What if he found me? Weeks passed, and I tried to go back to normal. But the tension in the air was palpable. One evening, while walking home from work, I noticed a black SUV following me. I quickened my pace, heart racing. I turned a corner, and it did too. I was sure I was being hunted. That's when I saw him. The DEA agent. He was standing on the corner, looking anxious. I froze. My mind raced. Was he after me? Suddenly, he got into the SUV, and it sped off. I felt a mixture of relief and fear. I had to know what was going on. I decided to dig deeper. I spent hours on the internet researching the agent and the case. It turned out he had fled the country with $1.7 million in cash that he had taken from the evidence locker. He had betrayed everything he stood for, all for money. But then came the shocking twist. A week later, I received a message from an unknown number. It was a warning: stay out of this, or you'll regret it. My heart sank. This wasn't a game anymore. I felt trapped in a nightmare. I reported the threats to the police, but they could do little without proof. Days turned into weeks, and I was constantly looking over my shoulder. I was terrified. Finally, the authorities caught wind of the agent's whereabouts. A tip-off had come through, and they planned to raid a location in Miami where he was believed to be hiding. The day of the raid, I felt a strange mix of excitement and dread. I watched from a distance as SWAT teams surrounded the place. I couldn't believe it was finally happening. The agent was caught trying to escape with a suitcase full of cash. It felt surreal. In the end, I learned that the truth can be stranger than fiction. I never expected to be part of such a dangerous story. The dirty DEA agent was arrested, and the case became national news. Now, every time I pass by that taco stand or walk along the beach, I remember that ordinary day that spiraled into chaos. I learned that sometimes, you stumble upon the most shocking events when you least expect it. And I'll never forget how close I came to becoming part of a story I never wanted to be in.